Welcome to Healthy Teaching Kitchen Video Connect live cooking demonstration. My name is Tamara Sugarek and I am the Healthy Teaching Kitchen Program Coordinator for South Texas Veteran Healthcare System. Also with me is Chef Conway, our Executive Chef.
Good morning.
And Christina Elizondo. She is the MOVE Program Coordinator and Facilitator of this project.
Good morning, everyone.
She will be running our chat box today. And then lastly, our Whole Health Program Coordinator, Jalen Paha, will be assisting with our Video Connect services. So you have been invited to this class through a special project specifically designed for African American veteran population with a history of high blood pressure. This demonstration today will emphasize cooking healthy with soul food. Throughout the class, please feel free to type into the chat box any questions or comments that you have. Your mics have been muted. But we really would look forward to hearing from you in the chat box. As a reminder, our cooking demonstration does end at noon today, so if we leave any questions unanswered at noon, we will be following up with you to make sure we answer your questions. You should have received a packet in the mail, and in that packet you will find that we are going to get started with our Southwestern black-eyed pea salad. We will be following up the second recipe with Good For You cornbread, and that is actually in your booklet. And then following that will be our fish dinner baked in foil. So we need to get started. What do you have for us today, Chef?
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
First of all, I want to give a little bit of background on why we're doing this and why I'm doing it. Well, first of all, they said they wanted African American food, so they brought in a ringer. I was diagnosed with hypertension when I was 19.
Okay.
So none of this is news to me. I was born a poor black child in Mississippi, the oldest of 6 children raised by a single mom. So I basically had to learn to cook out of self-defense.
You've had some good experience with this.
I fed a family of 7 on $200 worth of food stamps a month. So this is not something that's going to be difficult for us. What I didn't get in the habit of was what we call healthy cooking. And now I'm learning, not only am I starting to preach this, I'm starting to practice it because I'm making some lifestyle changes along with, hopefully with the veterans who are watching us. So we'll make this journey together and hopefully we'll all make some progress and improve our own lives. So the first thing we're going to start with is our Southwestern black-eyed pea salad. There are many versions of this. We've called it Carolina caviar, Texas caviar. Wherever you happen to be making it, it's a caviar. So we start out with 2 pounds of cooked black-eyed peas. Now I was going to show you all how to do black-eyed peas, but I changed my mind because it's rather time-consuming. A few of the things I do want to tell you, though, is that to get your 2 pounds of black-eyed peas, you start out with 1 pound of dried peas.
Okay. Do you have to soak them?
These are one of the few legumes dried that I don't think you really need to soak.
Okay.
However, if you're going to do it, you would do it overnight, or 6 to 8 hours overnight.
Okay.
And then there's the quick soak method, which is on the bag.
Oh, okay.
So just follow along with that. But what we got today is I got some canned, already cooked beans, so we cheated today.
Okay.
All right. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to make our dressing, make our salad dressing. We've got a bowl here. Now, one thing that I do want to emphasize that I did not do growing up and I normally don't do at home is measuring. One way you can ensure that you are getting the correct nutritional value without changing it to inhibit your lifestyle changes is to measure things.
Okay.
Your ingredients and also your portion sizes. Okay?
Okay.
So we're going to measure all of our ingredients today. We're going to start out making our dressing for this. We're going to do 1/4 cup of red wine vinegar.
So I love that you're using red wine vinegar because it has a property called resveratrol in it, and it actually helps to lower the blood pressure. It helps to remove the blood clots, and so red wine vinegar is a great asset to this recipe.
I did not know that. I use it because it tastes good.
It does taste good. That is an added benefit.
We're going to use a tablespoon of Dijon mustard, and it may sound fancy, but it's not really. The only difference between plain mustard and Dijon is a little bit of white wine in it. And if you've heard of Grey Poupon,
oh yes,
you've heard of Dijon mustard.
Okay.
Next we're going to do some garlic. Now, most people spend a lot of money buying minced garlic. It's not that difficult to do yourself. And if you've had a bad day or you're in a bad mood, this is a good way to help you right here.
So I love the garlic property. So one
Yes.
thing about garlic is if you do chop it yourself, you should let it sit for 10 minutes because it has an enzyme in it called allinase.
Allinase.
And it changes in the body to allicin, and it actually is anti-inflammatory, and it's at its peak 10 minutes after it's minced.
I've done a few personal chef stints, and I've had people who have been diagnosed with arthritis.
Yes.
And one of the things that their nutritionists or physicians or healthcare providers or whoever it was that was giving them dietary advice always said was, you can never have too much garlic.
So I used to go to the store, and I've heard you've heard of garlic bread, and you think you put a little garlic on top. I actually went in and found a loaf, and it had huge garlic cloves throughout the whole loaf of bread, and I thought looked so good.
Well, we've done that with focaccia, which is like one of our easier Italian breads to make.
Yes.
We've put tomatoes in it. We put whole herbs in it.
So that really
Garlic.
makes
Yeah,
it healthy.
it makes it
for
healthy.
sure.
Okay. Next, we're going to do a little bit of ground black pepper. I'm not measuring that because I don't like to.
It's harder to measure when you're doing the twist.
But we are going to measure our salt. That is one thing we will always measure. And for this right here, we're only going to put like a little pinch.
A little tiny.
It's not even an eighth of a teaspoon.
Okay, so the overall recipe is going to not be very high for salt then.
Well, the thing is, I'm really careful with that, especially when I'm using canned products,
Okay.
because they're usually processed with salt.
So the better flavor and the better choice would be to make your own beans from
Always.
dry,
Always.
because you're going to get more flavor from that.
Always. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to whisk these items together here. Now, if I had salt in here, or if I had sugar in here, the key to this is just to dissolve the solid stuff in here.
Okay.
And we're not adding a lot of extra stuff in here. We've got our mustard in here to emulsify. And what we're going to do, normally this is a one-person job, so what I do is I have a wet towel under here to make sure that my bowl doesn't move. And whisking continuously. I used 1/4 cup of vinegar, so I'm going to use 3/4 cup of oil.
Okay.
It's usually 3 to 1. Some people say 2 to 1.
Okay.
I stretch it a little bit.
Okay. So this is olive oil, which is a healthy oil
It is
for
very
you.
healthy oil.
Anti-inflammatory, not associated with weight gain or obesity. Helps to prevent heart disease and stroke. So anytime you can substitute unhealthy oil like corn oil or vegetable oil with olive oil, it's going to be an added benefit.
Again, my big thing is it tastes good.
It does taste good, so that does help.
All right, so as you can see, it's emulsified. And this is what we call a stable emulsion. You could actually keep this in your refrigerator for a while and it won't separate. You know how sometimes when you put oil and vinegar together, they'll separate?
Yes.
Well, that mustard acts as an emulsifier and it keeps it together.
So it helps to bind it.
So our dressing is ready to go. Let's clean up a little bit here. And we're going to move on to our next ingredients. We're going to put a lot of fresh vegetables in here to add flavor to it. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take a jalapeno pepper that I have in this bowl over here. We're going to mince our jalapeno pepper. Now, one thing that I tell people is take the seeds and the ribs out, and make sure when you're doing that, you're wearing gloves.
So the pepper gets hotter with the seeds.
It does. And if you like yours really spicy, leave it in there.
Okay.
However, one of the things that I've always taught my culinary students is that if you're using a green pepper, you only want green. Using a red pepper, you only want red. Using a yellow pepper, you only want yellow.
You don't want to mix them.
Yeah, you don't. Because these can, if you use too much of them, can tend to be a little bit bitter.
Okay. That's good to know. So
I'm not
jalapenos are really high in vitamin C, which is a great antioxidant to help keep you healthy.
This is not going to be cooked. So basically I'm handling ready-to-eat food here.
So you want to make sure that it's sanitary.
Yeah. Cooking at home for myself, I wouldn't take these precautions necessarily.
Okay.
Although now, because you don't know if you're going to have guests or not because of the uncertainty surrounding COVID-19 and everything, I would recommend if you're dealing with ready-to-eat food or food that won't be cooked or be reheated after you touch it, then I would recommend you wear gloves.
Okay.
Or at least make sure you don't touch it with your bare hands. Okay?
So the heat that is in a jalapeno is from the
Capsicum.
Okay.
And again, that is another one of those things I believe that I've heard is considered an anti-inflammatory.
It is, and it also helps with it boosts your metabolism a little bit and helps speed the metabolism for those who like to make sure you burn your calories appropriately. Ulcers too. So now we've got an onion.
This is a plain white onion. You can use yellow, you can use red.
Okay.
One of the things that I hear a lot of people complain about is they can't dice an onion or peel an onion without crying. And there's a couple of reasons for that.
I've had that problem.
Whenever people would walk into my class, students would be crying and they thought it was my fault. Told them it was the onions. It was the onions that did it. Main tip I'd give you is to make sure you have a sharp knife.
Okay.
If you would look at this onion under a microscope, it has layers, we call them leaves. And if you've seen bubble wrap, that's what it looks like. It's bubble wrap. And inside these little bubbles, it contains different gases and acids that when they squirt out, they get in your eyes and they irritate your mucous membranes and make you cry. Now, if you've done bubble wrap, you notice when you mash on them, they pop. That's the air exploding out of them.
Okay.
But if you have a box cutter or something like that, it makes no noise. It's the same thing with a sharp knife. If you're using a dull knife, you're mashing these things, and the gas and the oils, they spread everywhere.
And that's what makes you cry.
It does.
So I need to sharpen my knife?
Yes. One of the most dangerous tools in the kitchen is a dull knife. I've had students say, "Chef, I don't want to use your knife. I might cut myself. It's too sharp." I'm like, no, I think you got that backwards. You're more likely to cut yourself with a dull knife because you have to use extra pressure and it may slip.
Okay.
So the 3 steps to dicing anything are what I call plank, sticks, cubes. We made the planks, then we did the sticks, and now we're going to make cubes. So notice I use my fingers as a guide here to make sure I don't cut myself. Now if I were going to use all of this, which I'm not, I would come over and I would start cutting this other parts right here. Now my chef who trained me, if he saw me do this, he'd yell at me because I'm wasting food.
Don't want to waste food right now.
Don't want to waste food. But I don't need it, so we'll just put it down there, and later we might use it to make a stock or something like that. But never, ever waste anything. Okay. The last thing we're going to put in here is we're going to take a bell pepper. I think I want a smaller one because we don't really need that much of it. Okay? Yeah. You've seen people brutalize a bell pepper trying to cut it. The idea is you want to use every bit of this bell pepper that you can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the top off and take the bottom off. I'm going to cut it like that. Again, everything in here that's not green.
So all the white stuff and the flesh membrane needs to come out.
Needs to come out.
Okay.
Now I know some chefs who would actually go through again and peel all this off too. We're not going to get that fancy today.
So you do want to keep the seeds out of this one though, right?
They don't really provide anything good.
Okay.
And if you have something like diverticulitis or something, then it's...
So that would be,
And
that
you get
could get in a pocket and hurt.
Yeah. So you don't want to... So we're going to take this part out here. And then all of that, all of our bell pepper...
So you can use all of it.
is usable, yeah. So the people who cut it in quarters and then try to do it out, they tend to waste a bit of it. Oops, I made a mess there, but that's okay. All right. So we're going to take this. Remember, planks, sticks, cubes.
So this is another, just like the jalapeno, has the carotene in it, which is what we call a carotenoid that has anti-inflammatory properties.
There's a nice also, right?
It helps, yes. And it is so good for preventing cell damage in the body, and anytime you have high blood pressure, it puts your heart at risk, and we always want to make sure that our cells are healthy. Vegetables are definitely a way to put that into the diet, and
so we're saying not just keeping our sodium intake down, but also
just
antioxidants and fiber, things that'll help us
build up our cells,
Yeah.
build up the health of our body. Absolutely.
So, there we go. We've got our onion, our jalapeno, and our bell pepper in there. Now, if you wanted to add a little color, if you wanted to be fancy, you could use a different color bell pepper if you like.
Okay, so if you wanted to do this maybe around Christmas time or Valentine's Day, we could put red bell, 4th of July.
Yeah.
We could put red bell pepper in there.
Okay. So what we're going to do now, we're going to add our dressing to this.
That looks amazing.
The thing about this stuff here, just like anything you mix together with different types of ingredients, it's always better the second day.
So those flavors have to meld together and just bind.
So what we're going to do, we don't have all night, and this is one of those things where we're not going to do the magic of television where I already have one already made.
Okay.
What we're going to do is we're going to cover this and we're going to refrigerate it while we make the rest of our food, and at the end, this should be ready to go.
But this would be good for a party or
Potluck, yeah.
Or yeah, so just like you mentioned, 4th of July, we could do this one a day ahead, put it in the refrigerator. You could have it for the party. I'll try it a little bit later.
Now, the thing is, I always tell people, taste as you go along.
Okay.
Even though I'm stressing here, measuring
Yes.
and following the instructions,
Yeah.
generally, I tell people, a recipe is a roadmap to get you somewhere.
Okay.
You don't always have to follow that route.
Okay.
So, if you like it a little spicier, add a few more jalapenos.
Oh, okay.
Once you know how to do it, make it your own. Make it your own. So we're going to refrigerate this right here.
Okay. Well, I love that recipe because it's super high in fiber. Antioxidants are in it. You've got your vegetables. It's going to help keep you heart healthy, and it's very filling. So make sure you drink some water with it to get the fiber moving.
And we're going to clean this up.
Those are great. Next, if you have your pamphlet that was in the mail for you, page 25 is going to be the Good For You cornbread. I know there's a number of different variations of cornbread out there. This one keeps the sodium a little bit lower, and so that's helpful.
Give me just a minute to unpack here.
Absolutely.
And we will get started on our delicious and really, really easy.
So that's one thing I love about cornbread. It is super easy, and it's a good side dish. It goes with the with the black-eyed peas. I always put it with fish for my kids.
Well, in my family, it's not a meal. Well, dinner or supper, lunch or supper, without cornbread. My mother insists on it at all times.
Okay.
She will not allow me to serve her a meal that does not include.
And this one has a little bit of sugar in it, doesn't it? That's,
It does.
I always I like a little sweet in my cornbread.
That's
So that is good.
that's a kind of a controversial issue. Some places, not where I'm from, it's not, but for some people, whether or not you put sugar in your cornbread.
Is it a southern thing to do sugar in the cornbread?
I don't know, because I have aunts, a lot of them, some who insist that you have to put it in there, and some who say it's blasphemous to put it in there.
Okay.
So I'm not going to take a side in that. Because they may see this, and I would like to be able to still go to family reunions. So that's all I'm gonna-
So they might take a side then. They might not like that. All
Okay,
right.
so main thing we do here, first of all, is we measure our dry ingredients, and then we'll measure our wet ingredients, and then we'll combine the two.
Okay. So we're
Yeah.
going to start with.
We're going to start with our dry ingredients. I'm old school. I use
Just a mesh wire.
yeah, just a mesh strainer, which is fine.
Okay.
So we're going to take 1 cup.
I wouldn't have thought to do that. That's a great tip.
Well, one thing is, sometimes if you're using salt and sugar, you'll get like little lumps of stuff in there, and it won't be evenly distributed. It won't be evenly distributed. So this is one way to make sure that it is evenly distributed.
So now we're going to mix the cornmeal in with it. The cornmeal, everybody has a hard time with corn, but cornmeal actually has it's really good for B vitamins and very helpful.
One good thing about the starch, the cornmeal also, and cornbread, is that it can be used as a substitute in some cases for starch in your diet instead of doing potatoes or something.
Yes. Yes.
People have been doing grits and polenta and things like that for years.
Yeah, people kind of get stuck with pasta and potatoes, I think, and here in the U.S., but really,
Now,
cornbread dressing would be.
Here's the controversial part. Thank you very much. The sugar. For this right here, I would probably not use this much.
Okay.
But the American Heart Association says it's okay, so who am I to argue with them?
The Diabetes Association.
The Diabetes Association might not agree with
No,
that.
they might not agree with
But
that.
the Heart Association says it's okay.
So we would be still counting it as a starch though.
So what we do is we want to get all this through the strainer there. And that way we have no little lumps or.
So although there's sugar in there, the cornmeal actually has manganese in it, which helps to regulate your blood sugar.
Okay.
So there's properties in there that although it is a starch, it is one that is going to help regulate blood sugar, decreases inflammation also.
Well, if you're old and you got tired and run down bones and joints like I do, not only am I taking care of veterans, I am a veteran.
Absolutely.
And I did, dumb stuff like running on concrete and combat boots back in the days. And
yeah.
so it's hard on the knees and the back and the ankles, and also if you're arthritic or have symptoms of overuse, a lot of the people who do heavy muscle work recommend this kind of stuff for recovery.
Okay.
And so who am I to argue with the athletes?
Absolutely.
So if it's good enough for them, I think it's good enough for us.
That really does fluff it up.
It does.
It really does make a difference.
And
so
it takes
you've
a
mixed
minute.
the sugar, the baking powder, the flour, the cornmeal all together in the sifter while you're putting
So
that through.
they're evenly distributed.
Okay.
Is the main thing here.
Okay.
And it takes a minute. You see, it takes a minute to do this, but I think
Yeah.
it's worth it.
Yeah.
A lot of folks nowadays, if you look at your packages, it says that stuff is pre-sifted. It's like the salad greens you buy that are pre-washed. I believe them, but I don't trust them.
Yeah, I always wash those
I
extra
always do.
too,
I
for
always do.
sure.
Now, sometimes you'll have some grains that are,
They're a little stronger, a little tougher.
and they won't go through there. So that's that's why we sift to get those out of there.
Okay, so we throw those away. So we are going to, so there's iron in there, there's manganese, there's the B vitamins, thiamine, folate.
So there are all of your dry ingredients.
Okay.
What we're going to do next is we're going to take our wet ingredients. Now, the funny thing is, bakers will tell you that sugar is a wet ingredient. I do
Really?
not know why. It makes no sense to me, but that's why I'm not a baker.
Okay.
We've got, I treat it as a dry ingredient, although if I were following a baking formula for production, I would follow the instructions and use it as a wet ingredient.
So that's why they put it in with the butter and the eggs.
It's considered a wet
when you blend
ingredient.
it to make cookies. That's interesting.
So I've got exactly 1 cup of low-fat buttermilk.
Okay. And that is kind of a fermented food, which has vitamin K in it.
We're going to take 1 egg, 1 large egg, we're going to beat it just slightly with our fork here,
Okay.
just to make it easier so we're not slopping stuff all over the place when we put it in our buttermilk.
So you mix those two together.
Right. And while I'm doing that, if you give that a quick stir for me, I'm going to put our margarine back in the microwave for 10 seconds.
There is an art to stirring this because he said he wasn't going to slop it, and that's the first thing I did.
It's not as easy as I make it look.
It isn't as easy as he makes it look. But I think the butter might be ready. So the butter's going to go in here.
And that might be a little bit more.
Or the margarine. It's margarine that's going to go in here because we need to keep this recipe heart healthy. So the margarine is going to have the properties that is going to be the healthier oils so we don't clog with unsaturated fat from the butter. And it helps to keep this recipe with the nutrition label.
So we're going to add that to it.
Okay.
And then we are going to combine our wet ingredients with our dry ingredients. Okay. Going to move all of this out of our way.
Just stir this up.
Now, the recipe that we got, which is not our recipe, so I didn't want to modify it, says to mix this for 1 minute.
So you can't overmix cornbread.
I know, so I'm not going to do it for a minute.
Oh, okay.
I'm only going to do it until it's thoroughly
Just
blended.
mixed.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our 8x8 baking dish. Okay. We're going to take a little bit of our oil. Better yet, let's take a little bit of our margarine.
So that's how I did. That's what we did growing up. We just rubbed it around in there in the pan. Nowadays you can use the cooking spray,
Yes.
and it's real easy. You
I
get it
prefer
very
that
quick.
myself. I prefer cooking spray.
Okay.
It adds no calories.
It adds
No
no calories,
fat.
which is helpful.
Now, my preferred method of making this, again, I'm following the recipe, but my preferred method of this is to preheat a cast iron skillet.
Okay, that would.
And every grandmother out there from the South will tell you that is the only proper way.
I've
to
seen a
make
lot of
cornbread.
recipes that call for the cast iron skillet,
Yes.
and it just really browns the edges a little bit more.
It makes the bottom a crispier bottom.
Okay.
Especially if you preheat it. So we've got that in. We're going to spread it out evenly.
So the egg was a binding agent, and that kind of helps to hold it together.
It also adds flavor to it. It helps
And
it to brown. We did a lecture yesterday on the Maillard reaction, which is what the sugar helps also. It helps it to brown it, caramelize it, and it makes it taste good. We have a thing that brown food just tastes better. Okay?
It does.
So
It does.
we're going to let that cook for a while. We're going to let that bake
Okay.
while we get started on our main dish here.
So we've got the fish dinner in foil. So that's going to be really nice and easy without a whole lot of.
This is a perfect thing to do for a weeknight meal when you don't have a lot of time
Okay.
and you want to keep it healthy.
Okay.
The issue we had with this, and I will tell you, is the portion size, which is an issue because fish comes in the size that it comes in. We can't just modify. You can't always get the size you want, but what we can always do is we can cut it. So we want 5-ounce portions here. Put that back there for me, thanks, man. 5-ounce portions here. Each one of our fish fillets that we got was almost 12 ounces.
Oh wow, those are huge.
So what we did was we reduced them in size.
Okay.
One of the things that I've always taught my students is that you have the knife. You determine the size of everything that you cook.
Okay.
So we've got 4 catfish fillets here.
So catfish is a great fish to use. It's low calories, it's very high protein.
It's very firm too. Now we'll use for this entire recipe a ½ teaspoon of salt.
Okay, just to give it a little flavor.
Right. But we will season it on both sides. So in fact, I'm probably not even using a full ½ teaspoon here.
So very little salt. So the one thing I really liked about this recipe was you can use salt or you can leave it out. But either way, even if you do use the salt that it's called for, it keeps your dinner, the whole portion of vegetables and meat, all under 500 milligrams of salt. And the goal is really 1,500 milligrams or less per day for somebody who has high blood pressure or any kind of heart disease. So I love that you can, if you left the salt out, the recipe is only like 77 milligrams of salt for the whole entire meal.
And we're going to put so many flavors in here that you're not going to miss the salt at all.
So you could leave that step out for sure and keep that sodium low for good.
So some of the other things that we're going to need for this, we're going to need a tomato, but we don't want the skin on the tomato.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if we're going to need a tomato. We're going to need a cup of tomato.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2 of these. And I'm going to show you the easy way to get the skin off of a tomato. We're going to score it. We're not cut, we're just scoring the skin here is all we're doing. Making a little X at the bottom. That's the stem end right there.
Okay.
We're going to take this and we're going to put it in some simmering water for just a couple of minutes.
All right. That'll loosen up the peel on there?
That'll loosen up the peel on there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take it out and we're going to put it in some ice water. Okay. Again, we don't want to cook this tomato. There's a fancy schmancy word for this. It's called concasse.
Okay.
I said I wasn't going to use that word, but I can't help it. I have to.
So that is the procedure for getting the peel off of a tomato.
The peel off and the seeds out.
Okay. So I do like the fact that we're using the tomatoes because it contains a nutrient called lycopene. And it is actually, it's an antioxidant, helps reduce the risk of heart disease. So tomatoes are a great asset in putting together this meal.
So what should happen now is we should be able to just take our skin, just like that.
Look at that, it comes off so
and
easy.
Just peel it off, just like that.
So that only took just about 30 seconds to do the whole process. It didn't
And
take
it's
long at
easier
all.
than trying to peel it any other way. Now, again, I have no problem with leaving the skin on. But it's a presentation thing. The chefs who wrote this, I'm sure, had a specific presentation in mind.
So it could be
When
a
they
little
did it,
chewier
yeah.
if you have that.
But
So
as
for
you can
somebody
see,
who doesn't like a tomato, when you take the peel off and you take the seeds out, they probably don't even recognize it being a tomato.
they don't. It's basically you're making your own tomato paste, or puree is what you're doing.
Okay.
So we're going to cut the top of this off just like that. Now that's trash. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take this tomato, we're going to cut it into quarters. We're going to take our little garbage bowl here. That's not our garbage bowl. My folks were so organized today, they gave me exactly what I needed. I had no extra.
So tomatoes also very high in potassium, and that is a really good thing for heart protection. Again, the vitamin C, very high in vitamin C. Another good antioxidant for good cell health. Always want to make sure that your cells are in top shape to keep your heart healthy.
Okay. So we got one more tomato to do here. Our folks are awful quiet out there. We haven't
I
had
know,
any
no
questions at all.
chat, no comments at all. Has anybody ever made fish dinner in a foil packet before?
And for my folks from Louisiana, you may have heard this called en papillote. Or if you're from France also. It just means it's cooked in paper.
Cooked in paper.
Cooked in paper.
Okay. So
if I were
you don't
doing,
have
again,
foil.
if I were doing the personal chef thing for Valentine's Day meal or something for a couple,
Okay.
I will put it in heart-shaped packets of parchment paper.
Oh, that's very creative. That would be good. So you're just taking the seeds out
Just
and
taking the seeds.
actually leaving all of the
The flesh,
core and
yeah.
the flesh. Okay.
Now, we were talking about how creative that is. It's not, I guess it's kind of creative, but the main thing is if you can jack the price up.
Yeah, so you can increase the price as a chef. That would be key.
We, in the South we have grits. I have a lot of Italian friends who say, well, that's sort of like our polenta.
Yes.
I said, the main, the biggest difference between grits and polenta is about $2.
So yes.
They're basically the same thing.
Yes.
So if
Grits
you're
are
from
good.
if you're from Italy and you like polenta, you'll probably like grits too. A lot of the things that we think of as fancy food, we grew up making a different way. A lot of the things that we think of as fancy food are just different names for things that we're familiar with.
I love this recipe because you can just put that. You don't have a lot of cleanup. It's just you put it in a foil packet.
And again, a sharp knife helps.
Okay.
And you can cut this, you can make it as fine or as chunky as you like. Some people like a little bit more texture. And you can just slice it and leave it like that if you like.
So it's really preference on, and that's a mouthfeel.
It is.
So whatever your preference is for, if you like, chunky vegetables, or if you're used to the finely chopped vegetables, then you can do this either way.
We could actually take this and put it in a food processor and puree it.
Okay.
Or I can take the knife, just like I did with the garlic, and mince it until it's really, it's up to you. You control what it is you want your food to look and feel and taste like.
Okay. So we're down to the last tomato.
Now, we're going to take this and we're going to put it in our bowl here.
Okay.
It's going to be a tight fit in this bowl with all the stuff we're going to put in there. We'll be okay. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to get some herbs.
Oh, I love fresh herbs.
And the thing is, again, this is a matter of your preference, your taste.
So there was a variety of herbs listed that you could do. Do you want to do all of those, or do you just want to do one?
Yes.
Yes. So you have the choice.
Yes.
Okay.
Again, it's a matter of preference. I would probably, my first choice with this would be dill.
Okay.
But if I were doing
fish is
it,
really good with dill.
it is always. If I were doing, this basically reminds me of a southern French recipe, Provençal, because of the zucchini and the squash and the tomato, the garlic. It's either southeastern France or a little bit of western Italy. Okay. So for that, I would probably use
so we thought this was
basil.
This was just southern fish, but it's not. It's actually got some fancy behind it.
Again, you can do anything, any way you like to do it.
So we're using basil here.
We're going to use some basil, and we're going to use some scallions, and we're going to use some garlic, of course.
It's unfortunate that you can't smell how good this smells.
Fresh
It
basil.
smells amazing.
It's floral. It's very floral. And again, there's a mix called herb de Provence that we use a lot. It's a dried herb mix. This cooks so fast that I wouldn't use dried herbs in it.
Okay.
I would use fresh.
So, and the fresh really don't cost very much. It was like $1.
They don't. And a lot of my neighbors, that I just recently moved here, but I had neighbors who all had gardens. And one of their things was they shared stuff with me. Because I can cook, but I can't grow anything. Now I'm going to roll this up really, really tight, like you're rolling a cigar here.
Move this so everybody can see. So he's rolled the leaves of the basil.
And then I'm going to cut them really, 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 really fine.
So that's an easy way to do it.
We call that a chiffonade.
Okay.
Think of chiffon.
Pretty.
Light and delicate, like chiffon.
And again, it's this green, the jalapenos, the green peppers, the basil, very high in antioxidants, very healthy for that.
We're going to take a scallion, a green onion. If you don't like green onions, you can use white onion, yellow onion, red onion.
So any onion would work for this recipe.
Work for this
Okay.
Now, what I like to do for this right here is cut it
So again, green onions, another very healthy. They're also called scallions.
Yeah.
So that's a fancy word for it. They have contains vitamin K, good to prevent blood clots. So again, all very healthy vegetables that are even added. And you don't really think of onion as like a vegetable that you would be adding. It's more of a flavor. But it actually does have vitamin properties that are healthy and help with immune function and anti-inflammatory. So those
Again,
are
I have been known to use onions as a vegetable. I will slice them and grill them or roast them. Excuse me 1 second.
okay. So it does. I don't know if you can see how pretty that bowl looks, but the blue or the red and the green onion and the basil in there. Again, one of those things that the flavors are going to really come together when in the oven.
I seem to have misplaced my garlic here somewhere. We're going to put a little lemon juice in here. Can you find my garlic for me, please?
So this is just lemon juice. Okay, down some garlic real quick.
Right there. There it is.
So we found the garlic. All right.
My helper's got a little overzealous
Again.
and cleaned up for me.
Garlic is it still reduces the blood pressure. It's all about, restricting the salt or pulling back on the salt a little bit, adding lots of garlic. Now, anytime any recipe ever calls for a clove of garlic, I add 3.
Yeah.
I love garlic, and so my kids have been raised on garlic. They love garlic. It is
The only
so
recipe,
healthy.
the only recipe that I would ever think of using a clove of garlic would be the recipe for a clove of garlic. That would be it. There's no such thing. It's just not there.
I made a chicken recipe, and it called for like 12 cloves of garlic, and I almost did 6, thinking it might be too much, and I thought I need to do it the way the recipe says, and it's one of our favorite recipes now.
One of the things I like to do, well, you've had our garlic mashed potatoes.
They're
Yeah.
very good.
The roasted garlic. Thing about roasted garlic, again, it's a member of the onion family, so it has a lot of the same properties. The thing about garlic is that you can never have too much of it.
Yeah, it's amazing flavor that just really helps.
And the longer you cook it, the sweeter it gets.
Okay.
Well, pretty much any vegetable, if you cook it, if you let it get brown, it's going to get sweet.
So I noticed that when I steam squash and zucchini, and then I put it in the refrigerator and let it chill, and I can eat that as a snack, and it's very sweet. I was surprised at how much sweetness
Are
was
you
in
familiar
it.
with ratatouille?
I have heard of that.
Okay. You can eat that cold. I serve it as a cold side dish, as a matter of fact.
I will have to try that.
Okay.
Because that sounds really good.
So what we do then is we're gonna clean up here,
Okay.
and we're gonna get rid of this cutting board altogether. We don't need this anymore. We're done cutting, dicing, and slicing.
Okay.
What we do need here is some aluminum foil.
All right.
I should have 4 pieces of aluminum foil here. That's it. I got 5.
Okay.
That's the only thing my helpers gave me extra.
Never know when you need a little extra foil.
They're afraid I'm going to cut tear one or something.
As you mentioned, you can use parchment paper. So those are,
And if you're worried about it sticking, I'm not. You could always just spray this with a little bit of pan spray.
Okay.
So we're going to take our fish. This is the presentation side that I call it. The side that was next to the bone is the presentation side. The skin side is the side that was next to the skin is the presentation side. The side that was next to the bone is the other side.
okay.
Now here we sliced up some zucchini and yellow squash because those are the vegetables that we have.
So zucchini, another one of those vegetables that helps to lower blood pressure. So this is a great dish for lowering blood pressure.
And you can slice these, you can dice them, you can do it. Again, it's your meal. Do
So
it any
you
way you
can
like.
kind of choose how you want to do it.
The thing you want to make sure is that you cut them small enough so that they can cook in 15 minutes or so, because you don't want to overcook your fish.
Okay.
People who don't like fish invariably have had fish that was overcooked.
Yes. Yeah, fish cooks rather fast.
It does. because it doesn't have a lot of connective tissue.
That is, just looks amazing. Let me comment on how beautiful the colors come together. All of it very anti-inflammatory, high in antioxidants, prevents clogged arteries. The olive oil that is used is also...
Now, when you do this right here, I didn't even put any oil in.
Oh, you didn't put oil in that one. No, it was the black-eyed peas
Yeah,
that you
I'm just
put
going to
oil in.
let the oil from the fish do it.
Okay.
When you roll this up, just make sure you leave a little room because it's going to expand with some steam in there.
Okay, so the steam helps to cook it.
Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold these over and I'm going to roll this upward just so if there's a little, it's going to make a sauce or a liquid and I don't want it to leak out.
Okay.
Now we are going to put it on a sheet pan, a half sheet pan.
So we can put that over here.
And I'm going to do 2 of these for you. Still have no questions. It's a good thing
Nothing from the chat box.
This wasn't a talk show. It's a cooking show, thank goodness.
I'm not used to a quiet class. I normally have a lot of input from my class members. So.
Listen, I have been an instructor first instead of mine.
So you actually layer the vegetables with the tomatoes on top,
Yep.
kind of helps give it.
It makes it a sauce.
It layers the flavors.
I'm gonna cheat.
Okay.
You know, I learned how to cook basically. Most of what I know, I learned watching Julia Child. And one of her things was, you're in the kitchen all by yourself. Only you know what you meant to do. She never apologized.
That's good. Only you know what you meant to
Only
do.
you know what you meant to make. And the thing is, some of my best meals have been, I won't say mistakes, I would say inadvertent creations.
I like that, inadvertent creation.
And they're whatever the chef decides to call them.
Okay.
So never ever worry about stuff that didn't go exactly as you planned it to go.
So we are layering those vegetables. So these are non-starchy vegetables that are very healthy. You're not contributing. You've got your starch from the black-eyed peas. You got your starch from your cornbread. So we didn't need to add any extra to that. But this is just.
I think I smell my cornbread.
Is the cornbread about ready?
Oh no, not quite.
A little bit longer.
A little bit longer.
Okay.
All right. So we're gonna take this one. I guess we do have time to do all 4 of these.
And just wrap it up.
We have some people not here in the room, but they saw me setting up in here. They will be back.
They're looking to see what we're doing.
So they'll be.
Everybody comes when there's food. So even healthy food, people still come.
Well, the thing is, it's not about healthy, it's about good.
It's about taste.
It's about good food. And good food, you know, again, I grew up, I was about 30 when I first realized that green beans were not actually gray. And that every vegetable did not come with pork fat in it.
The fresh is better than canned.
It is.
It's so much better than canned, and the properties of it, just the nutritional value is so much better when. Speaking of people who give you stuff from the garden, somebody gave us some green beans from a garden, and I actually cooked those last night. We don't want to overcook the fish, so he's made little pockets. The steam is going to be in there. It's going to help to cook the vegetables. It also is going with the zucchini and the squash, but it's also really going to help the tomatoes and the basil and the onion all come together.
Now, another thing I have to mention is ovens. I said put it in at 350 degrees here. All of our recipes are written for conventional ovens.
Okay.
That means one without a fan in it. But if you're using a convection oven, one that has a fan, then you'll need to adjust it accordingly. It's usually about 20 degrees difference. So you'll either have to lower your temperature or you'll have to decrease your cooking time.
Okay.
Everybody's oven has little quirks and things that only they understand.
That's true.
So,
That's true. I found when I turn mine on and have it heated properly, it cooks the food while it heats.
so let me grab our finished products over here.
Okay. So we have got potassium and folate and vitamin B, and we have got lots of vegetables that are going to be very heart healthy.
You hear the term all the time, the magic of television.
It's the magic of class.
This is the elfin magic we got right here. This is our cornbread. We did it earlier.
Okay.
Now we're going to take our knife here. We're going to use our paring knife to do this. I know some chefs who have favorite knives. Chef Hubert, who was one of my mentors, used the serrated bread knife for everything. If you watch some chefs on TV, like Emerald, he prefers to use a paring knife for everything.
Okay. Well, that looks amazing.
I know that because I used to set up their demos for them.
Okay.
So, again, the recipe calls for cutting this into 10 squares. Math was not my best subject, but geometry didn't work for me.
So smaller squares for the nutritional facts label.
Yeah.
We want to make sure for that.
Again, if I were writing this today, I would probably say weigh out your portion.
You could weigh the portion out, so then it has the grams.
Right. Our emphasis here, thank you, is on healthy. But there's people with no kind of health conditions at all who would enjoy this.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So again, I depend on you and the nutritionists and the dietitians to help me get the healthy part right.
We got to get the healthy part right.
I can handle the taste part. We got that part down.
Absolutely.
Okay?
That sounds great. They look, just the cornbread alone looks amazing. And I know pairing it with fish and black pea salad, it's going to be amazing.
So we're going to do a little tasting here, actually.
Okay.
We're going to get ready to plate up some of our stuff.
So we are going to have a little bit of fish with the vegetables.
And we're gonna do it up. Okay.
Okay.
Now you notice I'm not putting a wet towel under this one here because I have the little feet. One of my safety things: make sure your cutting board is stable. Also, you never use a knife without a cutting board. I don't care what Grandma says.
Okay.
However, don't tell Grandma she has to do that.
Okay.
I never correct Grandma.
So I've heard you several times say you have to have the wet towel underneath the cutting board to make sure that it's stable. So you don't want any slip of the knife or any movement, and then it causes accidents to happen.
So, when you open these, be careful. These have sat a while, so I'm not really worried about steam for these right here.
So if you're taking it straight from the oven, you're at risk of getting burned from the steam if you cut them too soon.
Okay. Now, as you can see,
That's amazing.
we've got a nice little packet there. Never ever handle fish with tongs.
It will
Always
fall
use a spatula.
apart, right? So that does look amazing.
Let's look at that. Our vegetables here. Then what I'll do is I'll take a spoon. No, I won't. I'm going to pick it
You
up.
can pick that up and drizzle that right over there.
Yep, I'm going to just pour that right in.
So you don't want to miss any of the juices because there's flavor in that from the basil and the tomato and the onion.
I'm going to do that one. You just sit there.
Okay.
And
So
then
we got to get our black-eyed pea salad with the fiber and the vegetables and the antioxidants.
Now everybody says, well, that little bit of fish is not a big enough portion. Trust me, that's more than enough food for.
And when you put it with a salad and a cornbread, you're really going to have plenty of food to eat.
So we're going to mix that up one more time.
So we let this chill for a little while, but obviously if you can leave it overnight, that would be good.
And this is about a half a cup serving right here.
Okay.
Which is a normal size serving.
It
But I'm
smells,
not a-
again,
but
I
I'm not
wish
a
you
normal
could,
sized person, so I'm
I
gonna
wish
put it
you
on
could
there.
smell it because it's the onions and the green peppers. It smells amazing. So if you can you see that? All the green
Somebody's
peppers
going to
and the
invent
onions.
smell-o-vision one day.
Smell-o-vision, we need smell-o-vision.
Okay, and then we're going to go in here, and we're going to take out. You like the end piece, or you like the middle piece?
Oh, I would eat any of it. I love cornbread.
Right there. And what you can also do with this is you could put a little bit of your margarine on top. Now, just to gild just a little bit, whenever you have fish, you know what you have to have with it, right?
So you have to garnish it.
That's a chef thing, but I cook. That's the one thing I do at home, even when it's just me, is that my food has to.
It has to be pretty. It always makes it look more appetizing when it's pretty.
So we're going to put a couple of slices of lemon on there.
Okay.
And then we're going to take some of our parsley.
So do you see how pretty it's coming together?
We're going to take a little bit of our parsley here. One of the stories I tell my students is about my very first day as a culinary apprentice. I was tasked to chop parsley, and I didn't know how. So my supervisor, she kind of embarrassed me with that. So on the way home, I stopped at the store, and I picked up a few bunches of parsley. The next day I came in, I could turn parsley to dust. So, there we go.
So it's just chopping it up, and again, the green
We're
is
just going to let it just fall on the plate just like that.
So these two easy steps with lemon and chopped parsley made it look like it's restaurant style.
Okay. And we'll wipe our edges off.
Okay, and then wipe the edges.
Okay. And there you have it. There's your meal.
That is absolutely beautiful. Any comments? Everybody see that? Got your cornbread, some catfish, vegetables, black-eyed pea salad. This is absolutely amazing.
Now, of course, we have our folks who are going to come in and try this a little bit later. Would you like to try it?
I would like to try that. I think that would be amazing. So I'm going to drop the mask for a minute.
And while you're doing that, I'm going to plate up another one.
So yes, absolutely.
So that I don't have to hurt somebody.
So this is going to be, I'm going to do the yellow squash and a little bit of the catfish. That catfish is flaky and cooked perfectly.
It's not overcooked. One thing I would do want to carry over cooking or protein, once you take it out of the oven, it's going to continue to cook a little bit. So you don't want to overcook.
So the steam in it really just helps keep it cooking the whole time. That fish is absolutely amazing.
And also, let me say this to you also, it doesn't have to be catfish.
Okay, so we could use a different fish.
You can use tilapia, you could use bass, you
Yes.
could use grouper,
So could we use redfish? Because I know I like to fish.
snapper, redfish.
I like
all
to
of
go
those are good.
fishing down at the coast, and I like to get some fresh fish.
A little bit of cornbread.
Wait it for 2 hours. It still has a lot of flavor coming together. I can see where the longer you leave it in the fridge.
The acid will also soften up your onion and your onion and your peppers too. Make it a little bit easier to eat. So if you have chewing issues or something, you wouldn't want to make it earlier. You also might want to dice your onions and your peppers a little bit finer if you have chewing issues.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, the yellow squash was very good. It gave a lot of flavor from the tomatoes. I'm going to try the zucchini now.
Okay.
That had the basil, and that was really good. So the other one was, we could use dill, and then we could, one of my favorites is using thyme. That's one of my favorite herbs.
Dill,
I have to have it.
basil. I've used oregano. If you're going with that Italian,
The Italian could do that.
you can create any flavor. You could use Cajun seasoning if you wanted to.
Okay.
Any flavor profile you want. One thing that I will caution you though is check the salt content of your seasonings.
Okay.
We make all of our own, so we don't put salt in them. And if you'd like those recipes, email us. We'd be happy to give them to you.
So we could do the seasonings without the salt. If you would like those, then we could get those for you.
We have about 10 different ones that we do that we keep on hand to use.
Okay.
They're just like, well, they have the same ingredients as the ones you buy in the store, except the salt.
So you could keep a base of all your seasonings, and then you wouldn't even have to get all the mixtures, and you could create the profile that you want.
Exactly.
You could do the Cajun, you could do the Italian, you could do the Mexican, so you could have any flavor with one recipe.
One of the things that I hope as we do more of these, because we are going to do more of these, is to learn to keep it as simple as possible as far as what you buy,
Yes.
and learn multiple ways to use it.
Yes.
Combine things. Again, I told you I fed a family of 7 on food stamps, and I fed them very well as a child
Yeah.
because I learned watching Julia Child to buy the basics and combine them in the way that works best for you.
So that's amazing.
And so everybody says that it costs more to eat well. Not if you know how to do it. And the point is,
The
a lot of us are never
Yeah.
taught
Yeah.
how to do it. I learned it, but again, out of self-defense. But hopefully, as we go along with this here, that's one of the things that we can impart to people, that you don't have to spend a lot of money to eat well.
So a lot of the convenience items, the pre-season, the taco seasoning, things like that are very expensive.
And
but
they're
when
not as healthy. And they're not as healthy
You
either,
have
so.
the base, you can just create your own.
I see some of the people sitting here saying they're going to.
Yeah, so we have a room full of people who are going to try these recipes.
Yes, yes, looks very good. We got some really good positive feedback. So thank you all veterans for communicating in the chat box for us.
Thank you so much for your participation in this, and we look forward to hearing from you again.
And one other thing, I want to stress this. I'm going to be participating in this program myself. I'm going to have to start practicing what they've been preaching.
You're on the right team.
Yeah, I know. And hopefully, again, we'll make this journey together, and we can encourage each other and inspire each other. So I'd appreciate any feedback that any of you have about any of the things that we've done. And also, if you like any other information about food, techniques, ingredients, anything, feel free to contact us. You can contact our dietitians. They'll get it to me, or you can contact me directly. I'm always happy to teach. That's what I do.
Thank you so much, Chef, for
Thank
being
you.
part of our Healthy Teaching Kitchen program today.
Thank you for inviting me.